Hey, welcome back to the channel. Got a little something on the bench for you here. So got the HDzero goggles ready to go. These are batch 2. The firmware on the goggles for the analog video is, we'll just say, less than desirable. I'm going to go ahead and firmware update my goggles, and I thought, you know what, I'll take you along on this process because I feel like there's some things missing in the instruction manual. So when you read the instructions of how to do that, there's a couple things I'd like to kind of show or highlight in this video. So I'm going to do a step-by-step, going through the entire process, jumping on the computer back over here, everything in the goggles. I'll get a monitor so we can kind of see what's going on inside, so you don't have to like try to see through the lens. But let's go ahead and get started here. So that's what this video is about. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is pull the SD card out of the goggle, or in your case, if they're new, you don't have an SD card yet, brand new SD card. I do like to, no matter what, put that in the computer and just kind of blast it. Just delete everything so that there's no files on it whatsoever. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to the computer, and I'm just going to wipe this and make sure there's nothing on it. And then I'll come back here to the bench and we'll start the process. Alright, so I jumped back over from the computer here, totally wiped out, clean SD card. We're going to go ahead and plug it into our goggle. Brass leads facing out till it clicks in. Go ahead and power up the goggle. This is kind of one thing you want to make sure is that your battery that you're powering your goggle, you want to make sure that it's got plenty of juice in it. You do not want the battery to die while you're doing a firmware update. Okay, so that's kind of important. So we're going to turn the goggles on. Let me go ahead and grab my monitor for you so you can see what's going on inside here. Alright, so I got everything set up here. So there's a monitor with everything going on inside the goggle. Let me zoom in on this and change my lighting for you. Alright, so we got everything set up for you here so you can see what's going on. Just going to grab the goggles here and use the little roller. So we're going to scroll down here to recording options, and we're going to format our SD card right here. So format SD card, delete all data, yada yada. So now we're going to format. Now this is really important because the formatting on this SD card is not friendly with Windows. Windows is going to say that the SD card format is broken and it's going to try to fix it. Don't do that. We'll show you more in the computer here. So that format is finished. I'm going to go ahead and power the goggle off and pull my SD card out, and we're going to jump over to the computer. Over here at the computer, we put the SD card in, and on the SD card, you can see here that it's added a movies file. Okay, so there's nothing on here before, so it's added this movies file. And if we look at the format, we pull up the properties here, you can see that the system file, the SD card format, is FAT32. When you plug your SD card into the computer the first time, you'll get a box down here or something that'll say scan and fix. Do not do that. Ignore it. Let the folder open normally. Just ignore the Windows will try to do a fix, and if you do that, it's going to modify, it's going to alter it, and your format is not going to work out. So when you go to firmware update, it's not going to work out here. So in here, we're just going to make sure that we got that correct, and then we're going to add our bin file right here in our root directory, which is right here. So underneath movies, we'll place that here. So we need to go to the internet. So here, if we go to HDzero's website, we can pull up the download section in support and the downloads, and then right here under firmware, in case you didn't know it, the manual's right here. That would be a really good idea to read this manual before you go messing around with these goggles too much. But that's just a little bit of advice from me. So if you go to firmware, and right here, this is going to be the newest firmware up to date that they have available. So this is the 13th of April 2023, and this is the zip file. So we're going to go ahead and grab that zip file and download it. And then from here, we're going to put it into a folder. All right, I already did that, so let's go over to that folder. All right, so in here we have a folder Okay, this is what you're going to be looking at. Ignore this. This is something I'm going to do. This is beta testing firmware. This is not ready for release yet, so I'm testing this with the crew, my home crew for Carl. So don't pay attention to this. But this is the folder that we have in here, and this has all the zip files. So we're going to open that, and then in this folder, there's going to be all these other folders. The only one that we're interested in is the goggle. So this goggle folder here. These are VTXs and different expansion packs and all kinds of other HDzero stuff. We want to go after the goggle folder. So let's open that. Okay, and then in this folder, I have my view. So they're the largest possible. But here are these different folders. We're going to do a firmware update to the goggle, a standard update. We're only updating the goggle firmware. We're not updating other things, and we don't have to do any major fixes. So this is just a standard way of doing it. So this is the only bin file that we need. We don't need this other stuff because this goes along with, there's other instructions if you read the manual where these come into play, and I don't have those issues. I'm only firmware updating my goggle. But keep in mind, I'm not using this. I'm actually going to use the beta right here. So this is the one that I'm going to be using. But you get the drift. So HDzero goggle, and then of course the firmware. I'm testing 27. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab this folder. I'm going to put it on my SD card. All right, so now on the SD card, I have the little movies folder, and now I have my bin file. So this is the HDzero goggle bin file. Of course, this 27 is not what you're going to be messing with. You might be. That might be the release by the time you get in here. I'm not sure what the future holds for that firmware update. But I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the SD card. I'm going to eject it from the computer, and we're going to jump back to the bench and put it in the goggle and update the firmware. So that's next. All right, we should be all done with the computer end of it. We have our SD card. Pop that back into the goggle. The little brass leads out. And turn on our goggles. And I'll go ahead and get this turned on for you. All right, so we're back into our goggle here. And we're going to go ahead and update the goggle. I'm just using this little wheel right here. So we'll scroll down to firmware. Click on that. Now, again, make sure that the battery plugged into your goggles is good to go. Make sure that you have enough power on your goggle. 2S 7.3, 7.2 volts is not going to work out for me. So I'm going to go ahead and shut the goggle back off. And I am going to grab a fresh battery. All right, so we're back over here. I got 8.2 volts, so I got a fresh battery on my goggle, so we're not going to have any issues there. I'm going to go ahead and scroll back down here to firmware, and I'm going to update goggle. Do not power off. The goggle is going to find that bin file on the root directory of the SD card that we placed. So we had movies, and then underneath it we had the bin file. So that's what it's doing now. It automatically went and found that bin file. Current version on here is 9.12. So batch 2 goggle, my goggle came with firmware 9.0.12. Having a lot of issues with the screen. The analog menu looking terrible. I think I got a picture here. I was going to fast forward this, but I'm not going to. I'm going to let this roll out so you can kind of see how long it takes. But one thing you're going to find out is if you mess with, when you put your SD card into the computer to get your folder after you format it, and you mess with it like Windows, you let Windows correct it or modify it. When you do this process, when this is completely finished, you'll have HDzero and little taskbar at the bottom, and it's basically infinity. It never comes back off. You power them on and off. It never boots up correctly. So that might be something that you're having an issue with. You need to make sure that the FAT32 format holds tight and Windows doesn't mess with it. I don't know how to explain that otherwise. And we're just going to sit here and wait. I just want to make sure that you see how long it takes me to do it. All right, so my goggles actually don't beep. I thought they should beep, but I'm just getting like this little like click, 3 little click noises. I'm assuming that should be 3 beep noises. So it says update successful. Let me zoom in on that. So update successful. Repower the goggles. So that's what I'm going to do. So turn the goggles off. Let them set for a second. Turn it back on. You can see the HDzero in there and the bars going across. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and plug my HDMI cable back in, because you don't want to have anything plugged into it while you're rebooting. So now when we go to firmware, we click on that. Now we can see that, you know, our firmware has been updated. Like I said, this is beta, so you can't get a hold of it on the website. It's not being shared unless you get a hold of Carl. So, but that's how you do the firmware update. So now, hopefully, when I go in here and I change this over to my rapid fire, go to source and then come over here to my rapid fire. So now look at that menu. I don't know. I should. Let me see, make sure I'm on R2. But now you can see this thing is like, this thing's looking really good compared to what it did look like. So I think we're good to go. I'm going to go ahead and change this back to rapid fire 1, or make sure it's on rapid fire 1, because that's what I want to test. Rapid fire 2 seems to work really well for me with the little whoop cameras and whatnot. So we're ready to rock and roll. I'm going to go ahead and test this firmware. Let me zoom out of here real quick. All right, so we got it all done. SD card is formatted correctly. The firmware update took. Everything's finished. So I hope this helped you out. I tried to make the video kind of as quick as I could possibly make it. The biggest thing that I can say that the manual is kind of missing is the fact that you don't want Windows fixing the SD card when you plug it in to drop that bin file on. Make sure that doesn't happen. Other than that, hey, I don't know if since you stuck around so long, I don't know if you see this here, but this is the newest iteration of the Whoopster. This is the prototype. The case is going to be a little bit different, but this is their V3 Whoopstar 3. I can't wait to test this out. This is their prototype. I've had the ability to help them make it better. So some of the ideas that I had fed to them, they've implemented this. They really, really are listening, and I'm super excited about this little guy. So I'll have a video on him eventually. Once they kind of say I can go ahead and do that. But I'll be testing this thoroughly for the next couple Whoop races. So stay tuned for that. Hey, you know what? I'd appreciate you to subscribe to the channel if you could. It doesn't cost you anything. Just hitting that subscribe button helps me out a lot with manufacturers. They just, they work with people that have more subscribers than what I got. So that would be nice. So if this video helped you out, you know, give me a thumbs up and subscribe. If you hated it, man, you give it a thumbs down. It all works. Enjoy the breeze.